Welcome to the Bridge the Gap podcast. Here's your host, Dustin Udke.
What's up, everyone? Welcome to another episode of Bridge the Gap. I got a fun one today. We're going to be talking all things scouting prospects. So what do you look for when you're scouting these college prospects? What should matter, what shouldn't matter on the field, off the field? And we've got a great guest, someone who I did one of my first podcasts with. And when I started this podcast, I texted my man and I said, listen, I want you on, but I'm going to wait till we get more in the college season. So we've got Nino Brown. He writes for CFB Nation. You were at the Senior Bowl. Nino, how's it going tonight?
Good. I can't complain. It's a blast to be back with you, right? Full circle.
I know. Full circle, man.
It's a good time. It's always a pleasure when I can talk football with you, my man. But yeah, just got back from the Senior Bowl, third year. Absolute blast. Can't complain. It just gets better and better every year.
So tell everybody what you got going on, where they can find your work and all that stuff.
So I'm exclusively right now over at the CFB Nation. You know, that's on X, YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, the whole shebang. And then my personal account is at _ Nino Brown _ I mean, I'm heavy into the college football, Devi. That's what I'm all about. I mean, I cover BC all season. This is going to be my third year covering BC as well. So, but I'm a Ducks fan. But anything college football, I'm there. We do an Overreaction Monday podcast over at CFB Nation where we kind of recap college football on a whole on Monday, what everybody's overreacting to. And then we got the Debbie Dollins, and then we got some team shows over there. So it's if you like college football, head on over.
You're my college football guy. When I'm like, I need college football, I'm going to hit up Nino and shoot you a text or hit you up. But yeah, check them out on Twitter or X or Instagram, CFB Nation. Great place to find his stuff. We're going to get into college prospecting. We're going to talk about the Senior Bowl. We're going to talk about kind of what your process is. But we like to start the show off with the
What
game.
exactly is the game?
Well, it is not a quiz or a trivia contest, nor is it a test of brute strength or athleticism. At its core, it's just a children's game, and I would wager that some of you here this evening have played Would You Rather?
Classic Would You Rather. So, Nino, you do cover BC and you credentialed media there, but would you rather be super plugged into one school? So let's say BC, and you get unfettered access. You have locker room, behind the scenes, you're at the training camp, you're at training practices every day, you're in locker room, you get whatever access you want. You're like, I want to talk to this player. They're like, sure, Nino, whatever you want. Would you rather have that super intimate experience with one team or scout all of college, no names or colleges, you're just watching basically black and white players, right? There's no names in college, so you're not going, oh, this is an Alabama player. It's just a player, and you just can just purely on their what you see on the film, and you don't know what school, who they are. What would you rather have?
And every week it's a different player?
No, so you can watch all of college, but you don't get to see names. So you're watching Team A versus Team B, and you don't know if it's Alabama versus Georgia or it's Appalachian State versus Middle Tennessee, and you don't know what player. So even if you think it's Alabama, based on the plays they run, you don't know if this is this wide receiver, that wide receiver. You're just strictly looking at this generic game film. So when you're looking at prospects, you don't get biased by school, division, name hype, all that stuff. You're just looking at purely what they do on the film. Or you can be super plugged into only one team.
I'm going to, this is a good question, Dustin. I'm going to tell you that right off the rip. But I'm an advocate of scout the player and not the helmet. So I'm going to have to go with, give me the black and white Tecmo Bowl, no names on the back. Everybody looks the same. And I'll go with what I know up here, what my eyes see. And I don't need to be plugged into one particular school. I get to see a vast majority of talent.
I agree with you because I think scouting the player, not the helmet, is huge because I do think obviously there's a huge SEC bias across the nation.
Yeah.
One way or the other, either you love them or you hate them. They're, right, the Power 5 schools get a lot of, press and TV time, and they're going to be the big names. I had Max Brosmer on a couple weeks ago from Minnesota, and he played at New Hampshire, where he was, a small school where they don't get the same level of coverage. They don't get the same level of equipment and training. I agree with you. Talent stands out. When you have it's QB1 hands off to running back 2, talent wins out. And it doesn't matter if they play for Alabama. It doesn't matter if they play for New Hampshire. It doesn't matter if they play for Appalachian State. It doesn't matter where they play for. Talent will win out. So I totally agree. That's what I would go with because you want to scout talent. When we're talking about scouting these prospects, it doesn't matter what necessarily offense they ran or what school they went to or who coached them. If they're good, and that will always shine through.
100%. And the thing is, we've seen in the last 10 years the success of kids in small schools that have gone out and done it. Like, great, you're going to have your Trey Lances. That just happens. But you also get your Cooper Cups, right? And you get all these other Ryan Flournoy that came out last year out of the Senior Bowl, went to Dallas. Takes a couple of years. They may not be instant successes, but you're going to see these guys that come out of small schools and do it. And every year we start to see more and more. It's all about. I said one thing we were talking about, like Mike Green, for Marshall, the end, and Donovan Zarakbu out of Boston College. Boston College, ACC. Everybody kind of considers that out of the big guys. They're the smallest, smaller guys.
Smallest of the big guys. Yep.
Marshall still, they're small school. But yet they dominated their conference. They put up the numbers year after year, right? And then when it came to, all right, they put up the numbers. That justifies me. Now when it's against the best of the best and they're still performing, or in that bowl game or in these Senior Bowl and Shrine Bowls, and they're putting up the same, then it doesn't matter which school you went to. The talent is the talent, And like I said, everybody has it could be a flash in the pan one year, but when it's consecutively back to back, and then you win like Mike Green, conference player of the year. That stuff just speaks volumes. There's a reason why you won that. And there's a reason why you're getting these invites. So, talent is talent. Like I always say, scout the player, not the helmet. That guy could have been just as good at Alabama as he is in Marshall. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I think we see it in the NFL, right? The Brock Purdy's of the world's last pick, right? Goes and just, was pretty good in college, had a down year, then gets drafted Mr. Irrelevant and is a really good NFL quarterback. Josh Allen, no recruitment out of high school, right? And now he's one of the best, right? Like that, how dumb it's just people don't know and they don't look. What I really like this year, Senior Bowl, they had that quarterback from Canada.
From Laria, Taylor Elsgemer
or something like that, yes. Right, like that's a place that is just untapped. And right, those players are good. We look at Kevontae Turpin for the Dallas Cowboys. Played in USFL, right? Like or Arena League. It was one of those like really good players who just that talent won out and he made himself a way onto an NFL roster and now has cemented his role there. So I agree with you. You scout the player, not the helmet. If you guys are watching, drop what you would do in there on the comments. Hit that like and subscribe. Nino, let's talk about Senior Bowl. This was your third year there. Mm-hmm. What's it like at the Senior Bowl? Like, tell it for people like me who has yet to been able to go. I would love to go someday, but I've got a 9 to 5 and a wife and kids. I can't always go, right? Because I do combine and draft and all this stuff. You, the third year, what do you like about the Senior Bowl? Like, what's the draw to always go back the next year?
It's the exclusiveness. Like Jim Nagy and Molly Millen, they do a great job with he kind of mentioned it in the press. There's only 6 people that put this whole thing together that are in charge of it. You would think there was 600 people. You know what I mean? For the amount of media that's there, the small guy media to the big guy media, we're on the field all together. We're sitting in the stands all together. Yeah, there's some guys, ESPN, those guys are on the field. But I've seen so many different bigger media guys and little media guys. We're all doing the same thing. You get that in-depth exclusive to see it. You see it on the field, right? I go to BC. I don't always get to go and get to the practices, so I get the games, pre-game, post-game. But you get 3 days of them practicing. You're getting to see these linemen, going through drills. You get to see how smooth they are, how that pad level is, right? What they look like in their back pedal when you're looking at DBs and how smooth they get in and out of breaks and the drills that these coaches put them through to get to where they're at. And then you see them, gel together. You gotta remember, these are all different schemes of talent coming together, trying to get on the same page. And then when you see them, be successful and put it all together, then you get to go on the field. And then you get to ask them questions. And you get that, just that one-on-one with a guy that a lot of people think are larger than life because after they leave you, they run into the sideline and some kid to go sign an autograph. It's like, it's just a surreal moment the whole day. And then you get to be part of that. I'll always be grateful for Nagy for allowing me to be there. So I'll be back every single year that I can go.
Yeah, and I have yet to been, but I see your posts and other people's posts, and Jim Nagy seems like he puts on a great event. I mean, just the backpacks and the cool stuff the players get, like just the amount of just fun stuff they do. I imagine the Shrine Bowl's the same way, which literally takes place like days beforehand. And I know people were going from Dallas to Alabama. Yeah. I agree. I've been to the combine the past 2 years, been to the draft the past 2 years, and right when you get to talk to these players, one-on-one, even though in the combine there's a big media scrum, but I'm asking them a question and we're interacting, and you get to see that. And sometimes you get them off to the side and you just catch them in the hallway or where you get them on a podcast like I had Max Brosmer and Dylan Lobby last year, when you get to talk to them as like people, because they are, right, at the end of the day, athletes in our culture are larger than life, right? In some level,
Facts.
even if they play at a small school, they are still big men on campus.
Yep.
They are it. In whatever pond they are the big fish usually. But they're just people just like us, right? They're just taller and more athletic. But they struggle with things, they deal with injuries, they deal with loss, they deal with all this stuff, and you can talk to them and I think you're right when you can see the practices and you can see, oh, look at this Matt, like look how fluid he is in the hips, or watch his back foot, or the offensive lineman, like watch how quick his step is, or how quick he turns, or quarterbacks, how they recognize all these different schemes, or how they don't recognize different schemes, right? You get a quarterback who's out there and just like looks confused because they've played in shotgun their whole career, and also they're under center and they look a little bit behind. That matters, and that's something to look for. And I agree with you. When you can get that up close and personal, and you can see it in person, it's totally different than watching it on TV. Because I do think there's just that different level to it.
You mentioned, talking to guys and get to ask them different things. You get those intimate moments. Like I was able to talk to Caleb Rogers, big guy, 6'6", right, offensive lineman, almost 300 pounds, and we're talking, run schemes and what he likes to do and his time there. And that just happened to be like, what was it like blocking for Taj Brooks? Happened to be the right question. He goes, that was the first guy I met when I got on campus. He was my roommate. He goes, that's going to be my best man at my wedding. He's going to stand behind me.
Awesome.
Little did I know that would be the question to ask. You know what I mean? But then you get that moment that he probably wouldn't have been able to share that experience unless someone had asked that question, and it was great to be a part of that. And you mentioned the backpacks. Nagy is so good, man. Everything has significance, man. Everything's played out. So it's 76 years, right? The reason there was a cutout of the Reese's Cup because it's 76% of the backpack was in there for 76 years. That's just crazy. And those are the little things that mean something that not like that. I'm not to knock any other bowl, but they don't like you don't get that from a lot of these other bowls. Like it's a uniqueness to it.
Yes, and right. And so that backpack is only going to be this year. Like it's not like it's another
100%.
like it's this year. So like it's special for them because they get to go once in their career. It's not like. Right, I work at the University of Wisconsin. I talk to people, and a lot of times band members are like, I've been to 2 different Rose Bowls or whatever. It's like, cool, you've been to multiple Rose Bowls, so I lose it. Like, but when you can only go to once, you go get to a Senior Bowl one time, and they get trading cards and they get backpacks and all that kind of stuff. There's something special about it. And you're right, when you talk to players and you connect with them on a level of humanity that is just different. So right now, Super Bowl Media Week, there's a ton of people down there. Shout out to Kelly Phoenix because she asked AJ Brown about mental health because he saw the book. Like that is a huge post because then he just lights up and just starts talking, right? And it becomes that's something he's passionate about. That's not football. When you start connecting people with that, the players light up because they want to talk about what they're passionate about. And most of the time, all they get to talk about is football. And when you can talk about, hey, what's your friend, or they light up because they want to talk about that stuff. So that's really cool. And I think you would agree with me that there's a difference in just being there. You can watch it, like you can watch the practices on, I don't know if you watch it on TV, you can find the film, you can watch a BC game on TV, but there's just a difference to being there because it just you have a feel for it. There's just a feel that you get being live, right? Like, isn't that 100%. The case?
Yeah. And it feels more real. It's real. You know what I mean? Like it's just, I can watch that practice. There's no sound. I'm not getting you're not hearing the pads hit. You're not hearing the whistles blow. You're not hearing the banter from the people. You know what I mean? Like from the other teammates. It's different when you're there in 9:30 in the morning when that whistle blows and Damian Martinez is the first guy to walk down the tunnel. You know what I mean? You're just like, oh, why is he always the first guy? Shout out to my guy Mike Anthony. He caught it, and every day, and he just you ask him why you do it. I love this. That's what he says. I love this.
Yeah.
So. You don't get those moments on TV, You
don't get those nights. I talk about with the combine. The combine is when you're there in person, it's dead quiet. There's no music. There's no nothing. And you have to listen in your headphones. So, I'm always sitting in the section. I always put one head and we're, relaying what the guy, Dana Jeremiah, is saying. But when they do the go routes and someone hits a big one, the stadium erupts and there's just this buzz. And you're like, oh, that's not only what I saw, but everyone else around me is talking about. Oh, did you see this guy? And you go, okay, I saw this and it caught my eye, but now I'm realizing it caught everybody else's eye. So it confirms my process, but it also shows me everyone else is seeing the same thing. And you just can't get that on TV. Yes, you can hear Daniel Jeremiah on TV, which is super valuable, and that's what we're listening to. But when you're there's just something special. So when you're looking at, if you're listening to this and you're looking for someone to talk rookies, Find someone who either went to the goes to the Senior Bowl or Shrine Bowl. Find someone who is plugged in, right, or is part of a group or a company that has people that went there. That's where I think you're going to get the most admiration, because I can watch the practices on film, right? I can watch TV, but it's just different. Like, great, I'm not hearing the pads hit. I'm not seeing who's coming out of the tunnel first every day. I'm not hearing those things. So I rely on the people that went. Let's talk about specifically scouting prospects. What's your process, and what are you looking for when you're scouting college prospects?
Where we go? What we want? Wide receivers,
Yeah, let's talk wide receivers, tight ends, like that, running backs, like skill position. What are you looking for? Or is there just a general thing? Are you looking for a level of, commitment, a level of, I don't know, go motor? Like, what are you looking for? Like,
well,
what
those
stands out to
factor
you?
in. Those factor in. I mean, I'll tell you something that doesn't really factor in a lot. It is off-field stuff. It does to a degree, but for
Okay.
them, slightly, because the NFL guys, they don't really factor in, to be honest with you, at all.
Yeah.
So why should I factor in? You know what I mean? In my process, but like I look at target share. I look at how many routes you can run on the tree. How productive you are in those routes run. A big thing is drops, right?
Yeah.
We don't want a guy that's averaging 6 to 10 drops a year. We want a guy that's steady hands. I look at a guy that's versatile. Doesn't have to be a one-trick pony lineup. It doesn't have to line up on the outside or in the slot. I kind of like these new modernized wide receivers, kind of like the Amon St. Browns that are getting 60 in the slot, 40 in the outside, like Zay Flowers as well. But people seem to think they're just slot receivers. That's what they call them, but they do a lot of their production on the outside as well. I take in quarterback play to a certain degree and scheme to a certain degree. I mean, a guy that's in a West Coast style offense kind of go up a couple more charts because it's more in depth, right? You got to be in more places, more intricate. You got to know where to be, not just even if you're not involved in the play. So that kind of plays a role in it. But for the most part, just what I had mentioned, that's my process. Like I said, all field stuff, not so much. Small school, don't really matter. FCS, it doesn't really matter to me. You know what I mean? I don't care where you played. I just want to see what you did and what you produced.
Yeah, I agree with you. Like, I'm looking at those advanced stamps, right? So, like, I don't care that you got 14 targets. If you got 14 out of 50 targets, is different than getting 14 out of 20 targets, right? That's completely different target share, right? And you're right, drops matter. That's what I look at. I'm looking for effort. I'm looking for consistency in that effort. So, when we talk guys, I've been out on Dalton Kincaid for the Bills. And I'm a Bills fan because when I watch his film, I don't see the same level of necessarily effort, but I don't see the same level of like comprehension of the scheme, right? So I'm looking for that. Like, do you comprehend what's like where you should be or where you should be going? Are you getting that? Like, are you comprehending the play? Wide receiver, same thing. Like, if it's my biggest pet peeve with wide receivers is what are you doing on run plays, right? If you're just got there like hands on hips, cool. That's not because you don't know where that play is going. If you're not actively blocking or cracking on the backside or trying to make a player go downfield to get a block on the next level, that shows me your effort, and I want to see high effort plays, right? We talk about this culture building like Dan Campbell does. They're not building a lazy culture. When you talk about culture building, everybody's building a culture of these guys that are going to hustle and do that. And that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for guys who understand, or when there's an audible on a play, does the wide receiver or tight end know what they're doing? Like, is there a ton of miscommunications, right? Oh, this was an overthrow, and we don't know, but we don't exact play, but we can go, hey, someone messed up, whether that's the quarterback, wide receiver. But if it happens multiple times, okay, I might be knocking both of them on something. Or if it's always a miscommunication with that wide receiver, it's probably the wide receiver issue, right? So I'm looking at those things. That's what I'm looking for. I agree with you. Off the field stuff doesn't matter a ton. I do think it matters some. And I think part of the issue we have with prospects is not all off the field issue is the same, right? Jermaine Burton off the field issues are different than maybe Shedeur Sanders off the field issues, right?
Correct.
And so I think we're very much a all or nothing society of, well, off the field issues, you're off the board. Do I think Deion can be an issue for some NFL clubs? Yes. And that's a whole other thing. If you go, hey, he has this issue, for some clubs it's a huge issue, for some it's not at all. Do I think Deion can be an issue for Shedeur? Possibly. I think it'll matter where he goes. I think it matters how it pays out for him. I think there's some players that are like that. We'll see. I mean, if he really wants Shedeur to go to the Raiders, or the Giants, and Tennessee wants to take him, and he doesn't want him to go to Tennessee, Deion's not afraid to say something. And so if I'm Tennessee, do I want that? I think we saw it with Kaepernick. I think we saw it with Ray Rice. I think we saw it a little bit with Kareem Hunt. We don't want the circus that comes with some of these players, no matter how good they are. So it matters some. I don't think it necessarily takes anybody off my board, but I think we're talking prospects. It's like, is he worth the hassle that could potentially be with him? Some clubs matter more than others.
We've seen this already, right?
Yeah.
Archie Manning. Archie Manning was an advocate. My son's not playing here.
Yep.
Right? What is it, 20 years later? Maybe a different style flair. The Mannings have all that flair, right? Like, and he made it very apparent. Deion hasn't said doesn't want this guy to play here. You know,
he hasn't come out and said that yet.
But the media has. That's a different thing in time, is that we don't know what's real and what's fake.
Yes.
And I try not, when it comes to legal issues and all fields of, I try not even to touch it. I don't even like posting about it on CFB Nation as a general, because, you know, for instance, you choose Kyron Lacey, for example, right? Kid at the pinnacle of his career. What was released to the media was that he might have murdered someone at a scene and then sped. Now there starts to be some details coming off that he might not even hit the gentleman in the car. It could have been a car in front of him, and he may not even have left the scene because that might not have been his accident. So it's like, you got to kind of step away from it. If you're not a legal guy when it comes to stuff like that, like step away and let that process fall out. But as far as like Shedeur and stuff, he made a valid point. Like, when has it been a bad thing for a parent to be supportive of his kid? I agree. You know, and what has he done outside of any other guy that's like kind of flaunted it? Yeah, all right. The camera's on him all the time, and I understand that. All right, and he had his little swag thing, right? But like, Johnny Manziel had his little swag thing.
Oh yeah.
And before he got in trouble in the NFL, nobody really gave a shit about that, right? So like, why is it such a big deal now? You know?
Yeah, and I don't think the Shedeur stuff is a big deal. I think it's a note on, like, if you're writing a page worth of pros and cons of Shedeur's, I think you make just a little mention on the margin of possible distractions. Again, I don't think it's enough to take him off my board. I don't think it's enough to say, hey, he's going to be a bust. I think everyone forgets about the Mannings. I think everybody's still on the Lonzo Ball and Melo Ball. Like, their dad was like, it's just like, it's almost too much. I mean, but let's face it, Jerry Rice last year with Brendan Rice was very vocal about where his son should have gone.
Right.
But, you know, at the end of the day, he goes, hey, he's in the NFL. I don't really care. I wish he would have gone better. So I don't think it's an issue. I agree, though. I don't think off the field stuff like that matters. I think there are some other concerns, but I think there's worth noting, right? When we talk, you know, certain guy, who was it last year? Troy Franklin fell in the draft because he didn't do well in his interviews. Does that matter once he's on the field? Does it really? No, it doesn't.
What are they asking you too? Like, what part of the interview did he do good in? You know what I'm saying? Like, they're not exposing that either. You know what I mean? Like,
no, they're not asking what questions. Yeah.
They give him a calculus problem. They want him to make, you know, to figure out. And he was like, you know what I mean? Like, so that's other stuff that you don't hear as well. What kind of questions that they are asking him as well. You mentioned the balls. Most of the time when parents are advocates and vocal, right? The kids kind of back it up. Like, 2 of the 3 kids are good basketball players.
Yeah, good basketball players. Yeah.
One of them is a really good basketball, right? Like, LaMelo is really, and whatever. One kid's going to be a rapper. It is what it is. So 2 out of the 3. If I'm a baseball player, that's a good batting percentage.
That's a real good batting percentage. Yeah.
So, hey, he's doing his thing, and it's successful. A lot of times, these parents that happen to be super, super duper out there in your face, they have that swagger to them. The kid has the swagger to them, but they have the talent to back it up.
Yeah. Yeah. You very rarely see a parent who is super boastful about their kid who just can't back it up. Right.
Right. Yeah.
I'm not out there going, my kid's the greatest kid on this. Like, my kid plays, you know, elementary school basketball. I'm not out there going, he's the best kid in this here. Like, we're going to tear you up. And he's just okay. Right. You just don't do that. I agree. I just think some teams, and I think it's a preference for certain GMs and coaches that don't want that headache. And some coaches go, I don't care. I'll take a player. Like, I'm willing to deal with that. We know, like Mike Tomlin with the Steelers is okay dealing with headaches, right? He's dealt with enough of them. He knows how to deal with them. Whereas maybe a rookie head coach and a rookie GM, maybe they don't feel confident in their skills to handle those. So again, it's not black and white. It's 32 different people evaluating 100 different prospects on different levels and what matters and what doesn't matter to them. So that's what's interesting. But let's get back to evaluating prospects. Quarterbacks. What are you looking for when you're at the Senior Bowl and you're watching these quarterbacks? Like what are some of the things you're looking at? Are you looking at footwork? Are you looking at leadership style? Or when you're talking, like what is the thing that goes, yes, this is a guy that I think is going to be good?
So something factors got to come in. I mean, they're not getting full, setups. I mean, they're not really running full gauntlets. You're not getting, it's geared towards pass plays. You're not getting, all these run schemes. And he gets tapped, they kind of run the whistle and they go from it. It's like a flag football type of practice. You know what I'm saying? So what I do look for is 90% of the quarterbacks that are in Mobile, right, haven't played on the center.
No.
They're in the shotgun for most of the time. This is what they do at Mobile. They put them under the center. So they have to kind of get the footwork down and get the footwork down quickly. You know what I mean? Because it's something they're not used to. They also have to get the timing down. You're also dealing with a bunch of different people who don't know your cadence, right? And offensive linemen that are kind of in moving parts as well. Got guards that are playing center, left tackles and right tackles that are playing guard. They tend to put people in spots that they're not used to see how versatile they can be. Yeah. As far as the quarterbacks go, what I look for, I want to see how you do under center. I want to see how your footwork is, how you do with handing the ball off. Like, not to knock the guy, but seeing this Jalen Milroe didn't do very well under center when it came to transition to the running back with handoffs. He had a couple of fumbles. I want to see how you handle pressure, right? Like, can you pick up? Can you sense the weak side blitz? Do you see the strong side blitz? Again, Jalen Milroe got sacked, a strip sack by Walter Owen on the strong side blitz coming at him. Didn't see it. Yeah. Note to self. Day 1 and 2, Jackson Dart. Now, I heard that day 1, most people don't really count that in the process because everybody's kind of getting, acclimated. It's probably been like 45 days since they've actually played football, right? Yeah. But day 1 and 2, he had a lot of happy feet in the pocket. It was kind of adjusting. What I wanted to see is how you did with the layered throws, right? Because you played in the SEC, but in that scheme at Ole Miss, you didn't really have to make them throws over the middle over linebackers, in tight windows. We wanted to see how he did that. We knew he's got the big arm. He did okay later on. Dylan Gabriel, I watched him at Oregon all year. I was never a fan of his. I not so for the height because we've had shorter quarterbacks. Even Bo was a little bit shorter. They've still done it. It's just there were questions, and they always seem to come back. When the pressure hits the pocket, how he does. We saw that in this last game. That was always my concern. When 8 sacks against Ohio State, I guess again, top 2 in the country, that defensive front was. I understand that, but still, when the pressure comes, Dylan Gabriel seems to get happy feet, and the process starts to get a little bit, skewed and sped up, and he tends to, sometimes not go through the progressions and want to take off. I want to see how you do on the run. Is it in first instinct to run, right? Or do you look downfield and maybe try to progress the ball downfield? So a lot of that goes into play, and I like to see, how you do with these different receivers downfield with the ball, with not having as much practice with them.
Yeah, I agree with you. I want to see what players do outside of what they normally do. So if you're normally playing in the shotgun, how do you do under center? If you are normally a guard, now you're playing tackle. If you're normally a slot receiver, now you're on the outside, or you're an outside guy, because that shows me that you can process and pick up information quickly. I think that's a huge way of looking at it, right? You're looking at even the deep throws. Are you going to throw it to the outside or the inside? And are you and the receiver on the same page? And how do you know that, right? Because you look at someone like Bo Nix and Troy Franklin on the same page. He knows that most of his throws are going to be, let's say, to the outside. Mm-hmm. Whereas Marvin Mims might not know that. And he took some time to maybe develop that and go, okay, if he's going to throw this deep ball to me, instead of catching it here, I might have to be catching it here. Like that 6 inches matters. Mm-hmm. And just that familiarity of how the ball is going to come, right? We see it a lot of times with receivers when they get a left-handed quarterback, they struggle with the spin of the ball, right? It spins the other way and they're not used to that. It's just that subtle change. We see it with receivers who go to really strong arm guys who have a lot of zip. They struggle with how fast it comes out that, right? I like to see that. And then I'm always paying attention what happens before the snap and after the whistle, especially with quarterbacks. What kind of leader are you in the huddle? And what happens after the play? Are you, right? If you miss a guy, is it, my bad, right. Like it was on me, right? Or you're like, come on, man. Like, how do you handle adversity? How do you lead your team? When I go to the combine and the draft, I love going to these other events where they're just out and about. So this past year, the draft, I went to an event. It was Sam Laporta and Drake May. at the, they're working with Lowe's doing stuff for a warrior shelter, and they were building stuff. And just watching Drake May getting like these Lowe's workers, like, come on, guys, we got like just the way he led those guys was like, oh, this is who he is. This is his leadership. I can see that in him. And there's certain guys where I just don't see it. I went to the draft 2 years ago, and there was an event beforehand, and it was C.J. Stroud, Will Levis, Anthony Richardson, Bryce Young. When Will Levis talked, everyone listened. Like, he just commanded, not in like a listen to me. It was just I'm talking. People were like, and he commanded a room where Bryce Young talked, and it was like, oh yeah, you're still talking. Okay, he didn't he didn't have that leadership presence. Not saying Bryce Young can't be a leader, but there's just and it might be just a different leadership style. But I'm looking for that. So what are you doing before the snap and after the whistle, and how are you motivating guys between plays and before the play? Right? Are you getting guys lined up if you need your running back on your left side versus your right side? Are you confident enough to shift him over, and is he listening to you? Are you that leader who can go, no, I need you over here because I see the blitz coming? Right? Can you recognize those things? Hey, read it. Call an audible. Make sure all your guys get it, not just calling it and assume they got it. Like, are you checking with them?
Right.
The check with me is those sort of stuff. The RPOs, like all that stuff matters because that shows for quarterbacks that leadership and that ability to, especially at a Senior Bowl or a Shrine Bowl, where you just met these guys like yesterday. I mean, you may know them if they're in your conference, or maybe you played them in a bowl game once, 2 years ago, right? Like, you might have met them, but you're not. Most of these guys you don't know. And all of a sudden you're kind of thrown in. So, like, how fast can you build those bonds in the relationship? I'm looking for that. To me, that matters. That matters when you go to the NFL because, right, you're going to be a rookie. You're going to go to a team where you're going to know nobody, most likely, maybe know one or two people. I mean, from Georgia and you go to the Eagles, you're going to know like 6, 7 guys, right? It might work out, but for the most part, you're not going to have coaches players in a city you don't know.
Right.
It's a lot of change, and it's a lot of different, and how fast can you adjust to that difference? And that matters, especially for quarterbacks, because quarterbacks are expected to be the leaders of their team. And I think that's super important for them.
Yeah, I love seeing the 7-on-7s, because they do the 7-on-7s, and then wherever the pass is completed, they continue to push it forward. So it's like, all right, this guy, they all get their one drive, and then it switches, and the next quarterback goes up, and then they switch and go back down. So it's like seeing how after the pass is completed or is incomplete, how he gets everybody to the line of scrimmage. Now, different guys you work with, like you mentioned. So, you guys, do you believe in this guy that's going to get you the rock? So it's kind of like that. Like you said, they get there on Sunday, they stop practicing on Tuesday. So it's only really 3 days of getting to know each other.
Yeah, and then you see guys who come in late, like, hey, we had a guy go down. Can you come in? They come in like midweek, and it's like all of a sudden they're throwing in the ball, and even in the game, the Senior Bowl and Shrine Bowl games themselves don't matter a ton to me because I think that's just where it is flagful. It's like the Pro Bowl. Like, it's cool. You're not seeing a ton. Like, it is really just soft touch, weak defense.
Yeah.
But the practices, I think, for me are really what matters. And I think, right, you being there is super important because I think you can talk to the players, and I think you can get a sense of their personality because I've seen that. And there's been players that I've been historically down on because I didn't like their personalities or their love for the game. And I think you can get that, and you can also talk to other people who are seeing the same thing. So, hey, you can talk to Debro, you can talk to Tom Pelissero, you can talk to all these people because they're there. It's like, hey, what did you guys think of so and so? I thought it was really good. Really impressed me. Oh, I was worried about this, and I thought of that. I saw that too. And I was thinking about that. Right, confirms your process, but also it's like you can build off other people's insights and knowledge and kind of add those tools to your tool chest. Anything else people should be looking for when it comes to evaluating prospects? We are in prospect season, right? We just had Senior Shrine Bowl. We're gonna have the combine in a month. We're gonna have a draft in like 50 days. What else should people be looking for? What else matters when we're evaluating prospects?
Let me see here. We've gone through quite a bit. You mentioned the adjustment process for like quarterbacks. I take that in consideration as well with like running backs because a lot of times I notice at the Senior Bowl, like you'll see player be developed to come out of the huddle. Where you line up, you see a lot of like running backs go check the tight end or the lineman. Hey, I need you to line up here. This is what tap them or tell them to slide. Look, I see something. Mm-hmm. He's here. Slide this way. So like when you start to see, he's kind of like a field general. For that running back, that's a guy you might want to start, move up a little bit more because he's more cerebral. The football IQ is there, right? He may not be a guy that's going to get 200 something carries, but when he's on the field, he's the guy that's zoned in. He's leading everybody around. He's going to be a general for them. So that's something that I kind of look at as well as on the defensive side. I see a lot of linebackers shift to defensive ends. Hey, scoot this way. You know, they're drawing the car, they're pulling them on the line this way, you scoot that, and then all of a sudden,
Yeah.
guy blasts in, you know, and gets tackled for loss, so it disrupts
Yep.
the play. So that stuff, like the cerebralness, the football IQ, that sticks out to me. That's a check in the box. You might not see it on the stat sheet, but that's something in the process that's huge for me as well.
I think that's huge. There's a lot of stuff we don't see in the stats, and that's why I'm a big believer. Right. I think film has a huge role in how we evaluate all players, prospects, pro players. Analytics have their role, but the film matters because you can see those things. You can see what doesn't show up in the stat sheet, right? Uh, the guy might be black, but he might take up 2 blockers and gets his, linebacker free, right? Like that's a play that doesn't show up, right? That's something that doesn't show up, and all of a sudden you got a linebacker who's got 10 sacks, and this defensive end's got none, but defensive end's getting double teamed every time. That matters. I think that's huge when we're talking about this. So when we're in this prospect, if you're listening and you're looking at these rookies, and there's people talk about these rookies, if all someone gives you in their scouting report is stuff they pull from stats, that is should be a huge red flag, right? Oh, he's got a high completion percentage. Oh, he, struggles with the deep ball because they can look at his deep ball accuracy. If they're not giving you something that's based on film, that's a red flag because you have to be watching film. I don't believe anybody that's scouting rookies should be able to scout rookies unless you're watching film.
Agreed. Agreed.
Any of my writers, it's you have to reference like 4 game films. Like you can't just tell me you got this from a stat, right? Because if you're going to say he's got bad footwork, you need to cite your reference. If you're going to say he struggles under pressure, cite your reference. Like where did this come from? And so if you're watching and you listen to people, and that's when, I think you're really good about this, what we do over at Fantasy Advice Network, we're working on that. Like we want to watch film. And so I might not get to evaluate 50 prospects this year because it just takes me longer. I want to watch every piece of film I can get, right? And I'm watching the all 22 cut-ups. I'm watching whatever film I can find on these guys. And it might take me a day to watch one film on one guy. So I might take me 3 days to evaluate a prospect. I'd rather give you that insight instead of going, hey, here's 10 prospects in 3 days. Like, let me just do one because I know I've given you the right stuff and I've looked at the film. That is huge.
Yeah, I mean, to each their own. You want to give me 50 in 50 days. You want to give me 25 in 50 days. Whoever you want to do it, I get where I'm more on the route you're with. Certain things I find they stick out to me more than it's like I'm big on safeties and DBs. And I type a lot when I evaluate players, like the click and close. And when I was down there in Mobile, I was successful. Like for me, like I want a guy that's their back pedal is bicycle style, right? Boom, 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 and then they boom and they explode out of it. A lot of these guys nowadays, I know it has a lot to do with the AstroTurf, less injury. They got this T step, right? So their foot goes out to the side, right? And that's how they stop. But now that you're losing that explosiveness, you got to kind of come around. You kind of almost turned your body a little bit because your foot's turned. So stuff like that, you ain't getting that in a stat sheet. You know what I'm saying?
No,
that's stuff that consistent, and that makes me get how they close, how fast they get their burst, how can they give space, etc., etc. But that's stuff that you're not going to see in a stat sheet. And that's why film is huge. As much film as you can get, I just go with it. Numbers matter. Like if they use it correctly. Like if someone wants to say, he's got a lot of big time throws, right? And they mentioned the A dot. Do they coincide, right? Like when he throws deep downfield to certain percentages, like where on the field is he throwing to where it's good, and what are you describing with that 8 dot to go forward? Not just I can go subscribe to PFF2 and get the same stats.
I agree. Like stats have their point, and here's what I'm saying: if someone is doing like 50 in 50 days, don't just assume they're not watching film because there's a lot of people who watch film all year, and take notes all year. That's not me because I don't watch that much college football during the year. I know you do. Like you're covering BC, right? And so there's people out there. There's a lot of analysts out there who watch film all year, and then they make notes, and they have binders, and they have note sheets, and they'll watch instead of watching pro football, they'll be watching college football, and that's their thing. I'm just saying if you're reading or watching a podcast of someone doing a thing, and they don't ever talk about the film, that's probably a red flag. So, anything else people should know about evaluating prospects? Things you want them to understand or look for or get to the bottom of when they're looking at prospects?
Don't be afraid to reach out to people, okay?
Yeah.
If there's something that you don't understand or there's something that might be, hitting you differently and you say, I'm seeing this guy, I don't know how to describe it, I'm seeing this guy, maybe I can, someone could make, like you said, justify your process and justify what you're seeing. don't be afraid to reach out to people. People say all the time, I know you say DMs are always open, but like, especially if you're just trying to get into it, you're just starting to be this new guy, that's starting to get into film and player analysis. Don't be afraid to reach out. We all started in the same spot.
Yeah, and I think that's huge. Like, even if you read something and even you're not trying to, like, you go, what does happy feet mean? And you go,
Yes.
okay, reach out and go, hey, I'll show you. Here's some clips. And this is what I mean. Like, their feet are bounds, and this is what it should be. And I think the NFL has done a really good job bringing in guys like Tony Romo and Greg Olson and Tom Brady to really, who again, they kind of telestrate these things because they played. I think having pro players, but I think we as a community have people who can answer those questions. And it may sound dumb to you, but like, we're here to help you. I think, right. I know you and I know a lot of other people are like, we're here to help. So if you just don't know a term, reach out and we'll tell you what it means. Or if you're like, what does it mean when someone says a muddy pocket? Like, what is that? What does it mean to step up into a pocket? What does it mean?
What's a layered throw? Like,
what's a layered throw? I said he throws it on a rope. What does that mean? Like, show me what this is. Russell Wilson throws a moon ball. What is that? If you don't know, like, reach out. Don't be afraid to ask what you think might be dumb questions, because that's how you learn. You don't know what you don't know.
What's the A gap? What's the B gap?
Yep. What's an X receiver? What's a Z receiver? Like, reach out and ask. Like, and especially if someone's on a podcast and they're talking, hit them up. Like, that's why I always have, your username. I always have it scrolling at the bottom, like, because I want people to reach out and go, hey, because this is all about conversations, and I want people to reach out to you after and go, hey, you mentioned this on the podcast. What did you mean by this? And you can go, hey, this is what I meant, or we can explain something or continue that dialogue. That's what it's about. And I think that's huge, because I think we are here to be a resource. I'm big on that. I know you're big on that. Like, we're a resource for you if you're watching or listening, and we want to help you. So we may say stuff, and I try to stay away from some of the technical jargon, but sometimes it just happens. If you don't know, ask. Right. And you're right. If you're trying to get into it and you go, this is what I thought of this player, reach out to someone. Like, you can reach out. I have yet to find anybody who's just, well, there's been a few people that have big time me, but most people don't big time you, right? Most people are pretty down to earth, and you'll never know, like, who you might start talking to. 3 years ago at the draft, I sat on this box next to this guy. Just, hey man, what's up? My name is Dustin. He's like, my name is JC, and now we're like real good friends. I hang up with every drafting combine. I text him all the time. He works down at Arkansas, covers Arkansas State. And like, I just go to the comment, like, first year was like, hey, what'd you guys think of this guy? Like, I was like, this is what I thought. He goes, yeah, I thought the same thing. Yeah. And now we just talk. Now we just sit together and we just talk about players and we bust each other's chops, and it's just fun. Like, and you never know what kind of friendships and mentorships and just lifelong friends you can build just from reaching 100%. Out to someone. You never know. Let's do one last segment before we get out of here. Give us 3 players that stood out to you, whether that's on the field, in interviews, just their personality. What 3 players from the Senior Bowl stood out to you the most? 3 names that we should be keeping an eye on.
All right. I got you. I'm going to Harold Fanning Jr., okay? Tight end out of Bowling Green. I mean, this is a guy you're looking at that led the nation in receptions, led the nation in yards as a tight end. Oh, you want to say, oh, he came out of the MAC. Well, we talked about, guys out of Marshall, but I don't give a shit where you came from. If you dominated not only your conference, the country, right? Then it's something when you look at. You're looking at a guy that came in with, I believe it was the second fastest tight end time since 2018 at the Senior Bowl, right? A lot of questions were, how is he in pass pro? How does he do in run protect? This guy, he did well. Run plays, he was pushing guys around. Pass pro, he was violent. And I think he knew he had to answer those questions down at the Senior Bowl, and he did. Man, day 2 and 3, he was showing why he was so nasty in Bowling Green. He had a one-handed catch on a curl in the end zone over a DB. He had a play over across the middle where he made a double move. Left linebacker standing there undressed, caught the ball for a touchdown. I mean, he was literally a showcase day 2 and 3 after he kind of got his feet wet. So Harold Fanning Jr. is a guy I want to see how we go going forward. Combine comes, more team interviews go. I know a lot of people have Colston Loveland as one. For me, and they also have the gentleman out of Penn State. I'm drawing a blank with this name right now. Tyler Warren.
Tyler
they
Warren,
haven't won it kind of rotate 1 or 2. I had Fanning in there as my 1. I got a little shaky that day 1. I think he answered all my questions. He's still in there as my 1. Will he play in line as much as the other guys will? I don't know, but he has capability that we've shown to be able to chip and slide off, and get open. So for me, Fanning is the guy that I'm looking for. He met with a lot of teams. I know the Patriots met with him. So there's something interesting there. We had one slip up already with Shaheem Bell. Hopefully, if they do go to Harold Fanning Jr. route, it would go better, get better results. But yeah, I think it's going to be a lot of people once he tests crazy at the combine. Are going to be like, whoa, we got to watch out for this guy.
I agree. I think his combine scores are going to really jump off the board. I think he'll, from what I've seen in interviews, I think he'll impress in his combine press conference. But I do think hopefully he does a lot at the combine. I think he knows that he has potential to be one of those top guys. And there's not a ton of great landing spots for tight ends this year. So right, the top maybe one. There's going to be one or two guys that get the great spot, and the other guys are going to get spots. Right, like Patriots is a good spot because they really don't have anybody. It sounds like Cincinnati is going to be a good spot because Eric All is going to be out all year and Gesicki's gone. On that, it's just like maybe if Jonnu Smith leaves Miami, maybe that's a spot. But who knows where else you go? I mean, I guess backing up George Kittle or Travis Kelce isn't a bad thing for a year, right? If you're on those teams, but who knows? You could be the top guy and get drafted to a team that just doesn't use you. So I think Fanning knows he's going to come to the combine and do a lot. And then I think one of the big things right now for people is don't get locked into anything. We still have combine information, pro day information, all these interviews and questions before we finally figure out where things go. And then the draft matters. If we could say, Fanning to the Patriots is great, but if he goes to the Eagles, well, is that really that great? Probably not right now. Maybe in a couple of years. We'll see. So who else you got?
Another guy, another kind of a small school guy. I mean, his production wasn't small school. Jalen Royals, Utah State, wide receiver. A lot of talk was he was might not been 100% healthy. He looked good to me. A guy that we can literally say probably didn't lose more than one rep in 3 days in Mobile. Wow. Consistently was consistently getting separation. And day 2 and 3, they decided they wanted to play press on him. And he was just playing bully ball and throwing DBs off the line of scrimmage and getting open. So any questions you had, my guy Andy Pham once told me that when he was there sophomore year, I think at Utah State, coaches told Jalen Royals that he needed to get better at the line of scrimmage. He needed to get more physical and learn how to win. And he took a weakness and made it a strength. So instantly, that's something that kind of jumps off, off the screen to me. Guy doesn't drop balls. Once he catches it, he's great in the open field. So there's another guy that they're saying worked his way into a day 2 pick, and it might not be the end of the day 2, early day 2 pick. Yeah. So Jalen Royals made himself some cash while he was down in Mobile.
That's a good one. I haven't heard that name yet, so that's a good one.
And I got another guy you probably don't know, hasn't heard about, because not many people did. But I saw a little clip on him. I dove into him, and he impressed me and a few other guys. Marcus Yarns, running back out of Delaware. Listen, 4.3 speed, right? This kid is an elite receiving weapon. He has this unique trait about him. Most running backs kind of have to dial it down at the top of the route to make that cut. He has another gear where he seems to speed it up when he's going into the cut. He was leaving safeties and linebackers frozen. Instant separation. He made some one-hand catches down on the boundary. He running the ball, running in between the tackles. Kid has no problem running in between tackles. I know he's a little undersized, 5'10", 185. But I mean, he had 130 carries for 844 yards and 6 touchdowns last year at Delaware. The year before, he had almost 1,000 yards. So the kid is an all-purpose back. I think, in this day and age where you're looking for that David Montgomery, Jahmyr Gibbs type, 1-2 punch. He could be that Jahmyr Gibbs guy, that Tony Pollard back where, if you pair him up with the right guy and in the right offense, he could be a threat. I said down there in Mobile, he gives me that Darren Sproles type vibe where even on the special teams, this kid could be a threat.
That's huge. That's another name I have not heard at all. So that's a good one. So you had Harold Fanning, Jalen Royals, and Marcus Yarn. 3 great names. Nina, thanks so much for coming on here. Talking scouting prospect, not just individual prospects, but how you scout, what we should be looking for, what people should and shouldn't be looking for, what matters, what doesn't, because I think there's a lot of just noise. And I think a lot of people right, this guy played for the SEC, and some of that just doesn't matter, right? Scout talent, not the helmet. I think that's all important. Before we get out of here, tell everybody one last time where they can find you and what you got going on this year.
You can find my personal account on X at __ Nino Brown __. That's where anything you want to hit me up at a DM, anything like I do BC or my personal, players that I like, I scout, that'll be on X. And then everything else is at the CFB Nation on all platforms. That's where I do my podcast. And we got some articles up on the website as well.
Yeah. I mean, and for those listening, Nino is my go-to college guy. Right. And I told you when I texted you, I said, hey, I'm starting a podcast. I want you on, but I'm gonna wait till we get close to college.
Yep.
Like I don't want you to feel like I forgot about you. You're on top of my list, but I just need to time it right. And this was the perfect time bringing on with the Senior Bowl being done, and we're getting ready to head towards the combine. Nino, thanks for coming on. Everyone, thanks for listening. Go drop Nino a follow. Follow CFB Nation. Check out the great work they're doing, and we will see you guys next week.